we transition into this weekend trading that ends up being a little thinly traded, we look at the fundamentals, we look at some of the technicalities, and we look at some of the setups. As this audience continues to grow and continues to become more and more of a different style brain, as we continue to add more and more inner pieces, more unique personalities, and more thought-provoking, and maybe some more deeper thinkers, some that might just be starting out in this market, we first have to go over the basics. First, remember, this is for entertainment purposes at the core. I am not a financial advisor, and although I do put out what I think are top-of-the-line charts, you still have to take it upon yourself to make the final decision. You can't just go into a market, watch me, even if you respect the hell out of me. At the end of the day, you've still got to understand what you're trading, and you've got to make the final decision. I do realize that I have been putting out some mixed signals, and for that, we can grow. Starting today, you're not going to get the mixed signal. I have to remember, and I will, going forward, that I can't expect somebody to be on year 5 of crypto like I am. Some are in day 1. Some it's their first time trading. Some don't have the ability or the education to be able to look at something and say, I don't know what a bull market is. I don't understand liquidity. They have every right to feel that way because they don't. So when they come into my community, they look at me at a different level and say, well, this guy's got the experience. He has the track record. Why the hell is he being a dick right now? And I have to remember that each day could be somebody's first day coming in. So giving a mixed signal could actually be costing a lot of people a lot of money. Leaving them on the hook of saying, well, I may or may not, is not the appropriate way to do it. And not just from constructive criticism, but also going back and watching the last few days, it was very clear to me that I was becoming clearly frustrated at the same questions, and that's not the right way. That doesn't help anybody. So what I needed to do, I went into the gym this morning. I had a great talk with the Fine Group, who was actually being very helpful, actually the last several days, to help me bounce things off and also sending me things and all this. But it's led me to a certain level where I'm like, okay, I need to be more direct, but in a way you can understand my bottom line, but also in a way that for somebody on day 1 or year 5 or somebody who's done it 3 times longer than I, we can all share the similar mindset and still feel comfortable in the fact that we're getting the information, not just for the micro, but a long-term plan, but then also being able to learn the uniqueness within a technical so that we can make a rash decision on our own to be able to decide whether or not, okay, this is the market I feel like I can start a portfolio. This is where I can advance my portfolio, or maybe it's a little too risky for me to do what I think I need to do. So I think I'm holding myself ultra accountable because I have to, because I have not done it the right way the last few days. And for that, I apologize. But with every great leader and every great moment of adaptation and also progression, you have to take a step back. And sometimes it takes punching yourself in the face a little bit and saying, listen, man, you may have the ability, you may have the understanding, but why are you expecting everybody else to be on the same level? That in itself is not humbleness. That in itself is a level of aggravation and a level of self-entitlement to think that somebody should know what you know based on your own studies. So it's a very humbling experience, and it's also a very satisfying experience to get the proper criticism, because with proper criticism comes proper growth. So with that said, I would like to put this live in a different direction. One, I would like you to understand my philosophy, not teach you in a sense, not direct you in it, but let you feel it as we go across what my ideology is, where my heart and soul is at within the tokens, and what the basic philosophy at this point of what I'm thinking when it comes to XRP healthcare, but also some of the ones that I feel are so underutilized and undervalued that they do have a directive right now. And until that is broken, really the micro trading not only will cost me, but it'll cost all of you a lot more, because that mental fuck, mind fuck, is not where we need to be in an emotional state. So being in crypto, there can't be that, what is he doing? What am I doing? What are we doing? It can't be like that. It's got to be, this is the plan, that he's not deviating from it, and this is just the way it goes. And if we're willing to go rise with the ship, we also got to follow with the ship, in a sense of some is going to be learning experience, some is going to be market fluctuations, and sometimes when you're riding something, you literally can't do anything until it breaks down. So it can cost you money, but you're looking at crypto not as a swing trade style. 95% who get into that rotation, as you've seen the last couple of days, it doesn't help anybody. You have to be in that investment style mindset when you're in the actual areas of opportunity. So with that being said, the reason I say this and start out like this is, one, when we look at, and we're going to go through it in the hardest core way possible so that you can understand, one of my favorite cryptocurrencies, bar none, is IOTA. And that is in the Internet of Things. It is a mainframe token. And my philosophy with IOTA is I do own IOTA. You don't need to know what level. You don't need to know how many. The important thing is you need to know where. I don't see fit holding it if it were to break down, if it were to tell us, hey, this rotation might not be in our favor, and we could very well start to come down. So we can look at the 4 hourly, which is important. And what I think is an important backtest is the fact that we had this little pattern formed, and on each layer, we not only backtested here, we backtested here, which is very bullish in a sense. And then in the daily time frame, my own personal opinion, and I was being way too micro on this, and for that I apologize, for looking at the, oh man, we could break down in the 2 hourly. In the end of the day, who gives a fuck? I'm just going to be as plain as I can. Who cares? The 2 hourly is just that. So if it would have broke down, and it still can, we know where we have to go. So we use that as a tool of utilization. But for algo, in a sense, does that even really matter? Was that the make it or break? No, it actually wasn't. So when I take a step back, it's like, even if that micro movement broke down, I wouldn't sell it anyhow in a normal scenario, because it's on the back test of this formation. So what do I care? If it would have broke down, my normal philosophy says, well, you have 20,000 algo, go down there at 19.6 and buy more if it holds. What are you worried about? You're in this golden cross breakout. So that is where it's on me, because I was letting the micro conversation switch how I was trying to put out the information to try to appease the micro and macro. That's not helping anybody. So if this breaks down, yes, in the 2 hourly, we could have broke down to like 19, but it's not important, because if this breaks down, where algo is going to end up going is down here. And I know I talked IOTA at first, but I want to show you algo, for instance, because it's in that spot where it makes the most sense. Long-term pattern, trying to break out. And now we've put in a micro pattern here as well. I don't know how that got turned, but we put in a micro consolidation after the breakout, which is what we want to see. So from that standpoint, I think as long as we're within this consolidation, there's nothing to worry about. Now, obviously, if we were to come down and we break this pattern of consolidation, I can honestly say I'm not looking to ride it, you know, from the breaking point. If it were to come below 19.5, all the way down to 9 cents, or all the way back down another 20% maybe. Yes, Julie? Yeah. And in the sense, I don't know if I'd be willing to ride at 16% if it broke that upper structure. Only because I don't know if it would bust that W reversal. So anything in here, there's no problem. And yeah, that's a wide drop of 38%. But that's only because of where it's rose. So now we have to give it the benefit of the doubt of working. Nobody said this is easy. But at the end of the day, without letting the pattern try to play out, what are we really in this for? You know, so that's something that I feel strongly about. So that's the way I personally play things. So to give you a micro belief that there's something different, or that we have to do it in a different sense, I think that's not hurting anybody, not even myself. Because then I second guess what my normal utility moment is. Now, yeah, if you look at it in the shorter time frame, you can see there is evidence that maybe it could break down. But maybe it's just we've back tested here. Maybe we're just going to try to see and make sure. So the objective there would be, okay, well, you're in algo for a reason. So the opportunity would be keep further investing in, if that's the point. IOTA, when I'm looking at IOTA, up 2.82%. And I have slightly more IOTA than I have of algo. 10,000 more IOTA. And for me, it's this same thing. We're playing this golden cross in the daily until IOTA were to break down from this uptrend. And basically, it'll bring you into this area of 15, 16. There's no way to say that this is really broken down and we're going to go next layer down. So until IOTA tells me we're going next layer down, I have no interest of even looking at the portfolio. I just I want to let it play out. I want to see if the daily plays out. Yes, I understand Coinbase is going to go offline a little bit here today, but you can look at it two ways. Some people are saying, well, with Coinbase going down, wouldn't it inevitably go down? I'll give you devil's advocate here. Wouldn't it be the best way to pump it without allowing Coinbase users to get in on the pump when it starts? Just look at it from the devil's advocate way. So that's just something that's just something that I would say. It's no different than the philosophy with XRP when it was in certain rotational segments. We've just not gotten to the point with some of these IoT and ISO tokens where they've had that main move. They're very much stuck in a rotation. As to where XRP right now, we're cooking at $3.20. There's really no reason to panic as long as we've still got this rotational setup above the 20-day, and as long as we're above $3, there's really nothing to worry about. Yeah, I understand the possibility of it, blah, blah, blah. We don't need to focus on that so much. What I think, and yeah, if we fall down, there's the fair value gap at 250 back at that support uptrend. There's still the levels that could be micro in between. But the bottom line is here, we're building something a lot bigger that if we just take the micro view out for a second and start looking at it from a longer perspective, we've not even finished what we were supposed to yet. Those micro targets are there from the start of the bull season for XRP, and it's not been invalidated at the least. In fact, it came down and back tested like a champ the 20-day here, which is what you want to keep seeing. And we can go into the moving average convergence divergence here in a little bit, but I had to get a few things off my chest here so that we can get on the same page. With Ethereum, in the short term even, we shouldn't even be fearing. The fact that we are, and that we were so we'll let Ethereum do what it needs to do. Right now we're on the verge of actually a further signal here, but we'll get to that in a sec. But on this back test of this little channel that we created, the falling channel, we ended up creating an inverse left shoulder, inverse head, inverted right shoulder, bounced off of the downtrending resistance that formed that falling channel. And now just from the target itself, we've created a target of over 3,960 based on that inverse pattern. But that's not the whole thing. If we get over this is literally trying to backtest alt season is the best way to put it. You'll see it also validated in the total 3 as well. So the total 3 is also going to put us in that dynamic. So if we can hold 3,732 at some point, that literally, and that's just the target going up. But there's ways of unification here because we've got to get over these micro levels. It's funny how it pans out like that. But we really do have to hold these because we had the drop down, and then the next micro level will be around 4. But if you start looking at this short-term consolidation, we can clearly see something's developed here. And as long as it holds, we'll be able to take this from a certain level. Okay, well, where does it bounce up? I like to believe, okay, well, if this created, well, we might have to measure it a little bit higher just because this is where it could come up to the top. Because if you do left shoulder, although you did break down in the head, but all the way to the top if we break out. So we'll just do it from the micro parts. And then you say we get on top of this. Well, Tom, what does that mean? Well, it means that even if we're very bearish and it breaks down at the end, it should put us somewhere around 4,000. Even if you do it from a lower level, it should put us somewhere around 39.80. Let me let my cat out real quick before, it goes berserk. It goes. Okay, sorry about that. So with Ethereum, yeah, we could be building. There's absolutely the observation that could be made that we're building into a head and shoulders or topping reversal. But look at the setup in front of us until that's invalidated, which it could at any point. Obviously, it could be invalidated, but you have to go with what's in front of you. And right now we have a textbook inverse head and shoulders setting up. in that consolidation, and we back tested a very, I thought, a pretty clear falling channel here. It could have been even kind of into a descending formation if we pushed it far enough, but I wasn't willing to do that. But it still was a very bullish consolidation. And as of right now, we're looking okay here on the weekend. But, you know, I want everybody to understand this is probably the most volatile part of a pattern, because it's deciding whether or not we're going into a severe bull run with a lot of these alt tokens, preferably the ISO and IoT. But also, if Ethereum's getting ready to layer up here, and if it's going to bounce out, it's got some hyperbolic movement. So, or hyperbolic. So it's not going to be, this is not for the weak of heart, but this is also where you can start identifying on the pattern where your bailout plan is. Where if it goes below a certain layer and these daily time frame crosses get invalidated, that, you know, that very well might be enough to force people out. With Bitcoin, I think, and it's hard to say, but I think with Bitcoin, you know, there is that 91,000 area that we acknowledge. There's that 113,000 area we talked about in the 114 back test. Well, we hit that area now. So that's not so much of a concern because we were able to hold that back test. And if we look at this from just a little bit farther out in the 2 hour, it's a little hard to function in the brain because there's so much, you know, movement. But if you just kind of take it all away and then you say, well, what if? What if? You know, and then we start looking at it now. That could, in fact, be a double top around 123 to 126. Or it could be the micro-aggressive movement that pushes us into the end of this cycle for Bitcoin. So it's hard to say right now. But in the 2 hourly, it's held that looming death cross like a champ. In the daily time frame, it's trying to put a reversal here like a champ in a thinly traded weekend. In the 4 hourly, the evidence it's giving us is good. We're over the 200-day. Yes, the volume is not where I would like it to be, but we can write that off of it being a thinly traded weekend. So basically for Bitcoin, you're looking at to stay above this level. If it breaks below that, well, now it might be 108, it might be 106. It really could be hunting 91. But you start to round the top in a sense if we can't keep moving up. So that's how you got to kind of have to look at it objectively here. There's no right or wrong answer with what you're doing here. It's all a matter of your own objective here. Some people are legitimately getting out of the US dollar and they don't care if it goes to zero in crypto. They're willing to ride it to zero instead of riding the US dollar or putting it in the bank account. And that's understandable. Some people have been doing this for many years and they feel an opportunity at the end here with certain tokens, which is also understandable. And some people are in and they're saying, well, I'm in, I have risk tolerance, but this is where I draw the line. And that is also okay. There's no right or wrong answer to investing. I think swing trading is always the wrong answer in a risk asset because there's too many variables. There's too many forms of manipulation, and understanding trading bots and algorithms. It usually gets you caught up. They teach you to have stop losses because I firmly believe that technology I just mentioned hunt stop losses for liquidity. So, and I have many, many different instances where we can show it on the charts where something is at, let's just say 20 cents. And there's a whole bunch of liquidity down with stop losses that's easily identifiable down at 19.7. It's got a perfect, or even 18.7. It's got a perfect setup to go up to 24. Perfect amount of volume coming in, and all of a sudden there's that 5-minute candle that has a 13% sweep and then comes all the way back up. Not just for full liquidations, mind you. Everybody's like, well, it wouldn't liquidate me. Most people aren't willing on a levered trade to let it go 100%. If they're on a 10x trade, they're gonna have about a 2 to 3% market fluctuation, and then they'll find themselves down 25%. It hits that stop loss just to see the market go up exactly where they thought it was going to go. And now they're down $200. And literally because it tapped a liquidation or a stop loss. You know, and that's the problem. So if you're watching, watch from the beginning is all I can say. I'm not going to say, are we buying, are we not? Do me the solace from now on. And if you have to ask that question, you're not ready to buy. If you're asking me if we're buying, you need to go back and watch. The bottom line is here, the ultimate decision is yours. I can give you the information, but I can't do that. And I won't do that anymore. Because I think that's where we get caught up. So let's see. Let's go into the comments. Let's see if anybody has anything else to say. And let me get into the intro. Good early afternoon. 12:12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this Saturday, July 26th, 2025. I'm XRP Future Millionaire, and I reside in the great state of Michigan. And part of getting back to my own identity is steering away from some other people's projects, steering away what some other people from the audience might be in love with, and going just back to what I'm in love with. And it's very basic. I'm in love with IOTA and ALGO. That's what I like, and that's what I have. I'm in love with XRP and XRP Healthcare. They've never left my side. I'm in love with XLM and XDC, so they're in my back pocket. I'm in love with HBAR, and yesterday that was the one that I did not sway onto the audience, and I just said, HBAR, it's not for debate. We're going to ride it. And I love HBAR. DGB, I'm going to continue to be very, very upfront with everybody. In my heart of hearts, I want to own it, and I've flip-flopped a lot because it is my baby, but I simply can't do it because I don't trust the fact that when I go on Albank, we know that it says that we are not supposed to be using it even though they tell us we can. So that doesn't give me a lot of security to hold, $10, $12, $15,000 on there. So for that, I have had to let it go. I'm going to be very straight and frank, and there's going to be no more flip-flopping until I can actually have a resolution on BITUNIX or somewhere else, not crypto.com with the high fees. It can't be in my bag, but I will continue to cover it for everybody. HBAR, I love, so it's with me. And then on this page, it's simple. You don't see a few of them on here. There's one that could be added today as we go through the technicals, but I haven't bought it personally because I would like to go through it with everybody. And that's going to be the one that is on the table that is not in my portfolio, but it hasn't done anything. And it's at a very, very big crossroads here. And it's one that you all know that I love very much, and it's Alchemy Pay. But I decided to leave one open for discussion that was in the proper rotation that we're talking about today. One that is still in a proper area. So... And the rest, I love by association as well, but it's also one that I've loved in the past that's been re-brought to me with somebody who I really respect, which is DENT. And I have such a fondness for it, and I'm so glad Mira is part of this journey too, because it's a great layer of technicals. And furthermore, if you're in here, now that everybody's in here, if you're part of my Telegram, do me a favor. Stop showing disrespect to Nick. And you may not think you're showing disrespect to him, but Nick puts in his heart and soul into these charts, and what I believe is happening, and what my mods as well, after some very good conversation, is that we're skipping over Nick. Nick's putting in his heart and soul and his guts into this community. And Nick is not just my technical agent, my tech agent for no reason. This guy, if I had a right-hand man in technical analysis that was my understudy, not terribly younger than me, but still enough younger than me in his mid-30s, to where you could say he's a proper understudy. That's the guy that, don't try to go to the horse's mouth here. Don't just try to come to me. Go ask Nick. That guy has done above and beyond, and he gets disrespected just as much as I feel sometimes. When you try to put information out, it might get lost because you want to go to the source. You can't just get it out of the horse's mouth. The horse's mouth is on these lives. So show me that respect as well. So if you have a question, go back to my content. But if you're in the Telegram, please show some respect to Nick. He's probably the A1 in there. No, he is A1 when it comes to charting. When it comes to having an issue, A1 would be go to defined. He's my compliance agent. When it comes to having problems with people's demeanors, go to Jorge. He's the integrity agent for a reason. And we need to understand the roles a little bit deeper. And again, that's on me for not properly displaying it and not having this outward affection during the lives. So, that's on me. But no more. At some point, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, this isn't working. It was, but for some reason, we've hit a snag and we're going the wrong way. Not anymore. We're going in the right direction today. This is the kind of direction we need. There's no flip-flopping. There's no fluff. There's no blah, blah, blah. This is the deal. This is the facts. If it sinks in, it does. If it's hard to understand, rewatch and learn and try to even use your AI and start figuring this out too, because they can help you bounce. But remember, using AI is just like talking to Google. It's going to tell you what it wants until you correct it. So if you don't know what it's talking about and you're just like, oh yeah, keep going with this, it's going to keep rubbing your leg the wrong way. So there's that. So let's see. Hopefully we can get on one brain now, because with one brain comes opportunity. With the we don't know what's going on, we're running around like little mice in a field, it's not going to help anybody. All right, let's see. So good morning let's get through the good mornings, even though YouTube keeps skipping ahead. Papa Wheelie, welcome, and I'm sorry if it doesn't go back to the beginning, but this is what it's showing me. Gray Pa, welcome, and Irish Syndicate, good morning, and thanks, Papa Wheelie, for being in Tom's Zone for over 6 months with the XP Predictor, and also, Jorge, thank you so much for being a very, very trusted mod, and being in Tom's Army for a significant amount of time now, and being a mod in my Telegram as well. IQ, thank you for the $2.79 donation, and says, the Lord loves you all. Amen to that. And I firmly believe the Lord is giving me guidance and strength here this morning with the power of foresight through my community, but the understanding that I have to be humble enough to take it in the heart. So, and now that more than one of us is speaking the name of our Lord and Savior, God becomes present amongst this community, and our actions and our Lord and Savior, Yahshua, Yahweh, will lead the journey for us as long as we're willing to take it into our hearts and soul. Strider, good morning. Kawabunga, Iris Syndicate, good morning. Nick Morales, thank you so much for being top of the line, being a very important part, even if underutilized and underappreciated. We greatly appreciate you, and thank you for being not only a very trusted mod in here, but also our technical agent and administrator, but that's your title, in the Telegram. It's so important. Why is my fridge beeping? I think my son hit a button he shouldn't have. Hold on. Oh yeah. Son. He's a funny little man. He likes to mess with the buttons. He knows more about it than I do, as it turns out, because he can figure out how to put the free settings on and all this. He'll put the lock. He's a smart little man. Let's see. Kyle Kupiak, welcome in. Cape Cod. Kyle from Massachusetts, and also in Tom's Army for well over a year with the I Told You So badge. Papa Wheeling, Crypto Cooter, good morning, welcome in, and thanks for being in Tom's Army for over 6 months with the XRP Predictor. Crypto Cooter says, I thought the same thing about Coinbase. Everyone says, but they can't because Coinbase, it's crypto, people. Whatever you think, it's likely wrong. Yep. That's not untrue. Nick, good morning. XRP Zombie, welcome in, and thanks for being in Tom's Army for over 1 year with the I Told You So badge. Dent absolutely has been looking phenomenal. Another one that I own, and it's going to be the same thing. No more mixed messages. That is the area. If it doesn't break that area, I'm just going to keep doing what I do in my normal life, which would be compound my losses, put the portfolio back to where it was at before the losses of the day, and continue to compound into what I want until it hits that point of no return. But absolutely great observation. Just like ZIL, I didn't shy away from it. I bought the ZIL I wanted. And again, if it's in the rotation, there's no reason to not have it. And the rotation would say, we've got about a 20% holding fee here. And then if it breaks down, then we have to be very aware. But again, that's a very fundamental, formidable setup there. And I'm very happy with that setup. Data, the reason why I'm so happy with this setup, and I have a different chart here because I thought we could go through it, but I think it does us a little disservice as well. I should probably have the original chart up just so we can see it. Which one did I have? I don't remember which one it was. It might have been the Binance one. Yes. Oh, wait a minute. This is the other one. Yeah, this isn't necessarily the one I want. Although I can build that one up very easy. There's another one that's a little more in depth than that. I got to try to remember which one it was. I think it's this one. Yeah, it's this one. So, it's okay, this is perfect. Because we had this short-term consolidation with data. How's it going? Okay. 8. Ooh, my eggplant doubled. I have 8 of them that have popped out now. That is awesome. So if you look at data, we backtested this absolutely perfectly so far. And we've had this descending structure playing out. And these are very bullish consolidations. And it's got to build this cup now if it's going to do it. Now, for me, it's a little speculative, but just looking at it from here, yeah, you can have a layer of, if it breaks this down and you're back into this consolidation, you can sell it. But I think for me, what works best is it would have to break down this whole fundamental setup. And then if it does, I'll wait. And, you know, we'll do the opposite of what it didn't do on the way up. But until it does that, really, there's no way to invest without actually investing. And if you're in an area of concern, there's no way out of it is the problem, because you're going to continue to kick yourself every single day in the 2 hourly. As to where another one that I really appreciate, and Sean, you know, is the one who keeps, if we lose our focus on this one, we'll bring it back around when it's time. And I feel like he told us about it again when we were talking about, but anyhow, there's just this layer of, if you're playing something, you've got to have some kind of setup that you're willing to roll with. You know, that's the bottom line. And if it breaks down a certain layer where you're uncomfortable with it, or if it's not for you, well, that's why we set it up in certain ways. But it doesn't work for everybody. How do some people, if they come in day one, say, well, what is that resistance and what's that uptrend for the support? What does that mean? If it drops from there, does it come to here? Do I sell, or does it go to there? No, that's not what it means, that you completely run away. But it's a baseline that if this whole entire structure breaks and it breaks down from 51, well, there's a very real chance you might need to get out of the way, because you might not want to hold it to 20 or 30 cent kind of thing. But until then, there's not much you can do, because it's in a descending consolidation. As long as it's within it, it's all a matter of where you bought it, what your ability is. Nobody says you buy 100% up front. Maybe you buy 25% of the position. And then if it starts breaking out, you buy 25% more. If it starts falling down, you see what there's different ways of doing this. You know, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. Not everybody's on the same expert level. So there's a lot of different ways to approach this. But I think the best way for us as a community is just to stay transparent and just to be like, this is the bottom line. My risk tolerance might be far more or far less than some others, but this is my objective, and I've been waiting years for this objective to play out. I'm certainly not going to bail on it now. And that's why it always becomes, so many people get stuck in, oh, my average is this or that, but they don't give themselves the proper due justice. What happens if you bought something and sold in a bull market in 21, and then rebought in the bear market of 23, and riding it in the bull market of 25? Does that mean your average is simply where you bought it, or should you put it in the negative because you were able to sell out of a bull, buy in the bear, and now what are we worried about here, folks? If you were able to turn 5,000 into 100, what the hell do you care if it goes down a few percent? You're dealing with different levels of, different levels of investment now. If you were used to dealing with $5,000 and a 10% loss was $500, I hate to break it to you, but if you're dealing with 50,000, that same 10% loss is 10 times more at $5,000. Your initial entire amount that you used to deal with. So that's another psychological mindfuck. Some of my audience is dealing with far more than me, and they're like, well, what the hell, 5,000? My daily loss is 50. To where I might be dealing with more than somebody whose daily loss at $50 is too. See, that's the thing. We're not all equal on that level, but we're all equal in what we're trying to do here. So we have to remember, not everybody's in our same exact positioning, and that's the hardest thing to realize or to maintain when you've got such a ever-growing audience. Like, over 45,000 is a lot different than when I had 1,500. Certainly a lot different than when I hit 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000 or even 40,000. You know, so it's got to be that universal. Okay, well, what's the most useful information? It's the main setup. If X, Y, and Z play out, we're good. But if the variable plays against us, this is where we could technically, this is our bailout fail safe zone. We need to know if we're going to ride it through the eternity of bear market to try to get to the epiphany of where we think it can go in a bear market or bull market, and further with the digital era approaching us very quickly. And not just in crypto, but in the lives we live around us. Notice cash is becoming less scarce, and they're not letting us use it everywhere. Notice everything's starting to turn into digital. They'd rather you go into a digital appointment for healthcare now than actually go see a doctor, which is fine because I don't trust them and haven't seen one in many, many years. So just, but again, that's my own personal that I shouldn't get into, so I'm going to stay away from that. But I think this is the directive here. We need to understand what is in front of us, and a lot of opportunity here, but a lot of risk indeed. A lot of risk indeed. And do I put a lot of stock in XDC? You better freaking believe it, and that's why I'm overweighted. But at the same time, I decided I also like XLM, so being overweighted in XDC doesn't mean I don't buy that. It just means maybe I don't have to be so overweighted. Or I can not have so many different objectives. Like, for me, it was one of those things, like, I had a lot of things that maybe I might have been holding on to for other people. Can't do it anymore. So then when you start doing that, you start going back to your own objective. Like, for you, don't hold on to things that maybe I like IOTA and you hate it. Well, don't hold on to it just because I like it. If you would rather have a perfect example, XCN, can't fucking stand it. Can't stand it, and this is not a shot at Shane. I just don't like it. I think there's the wrong players involved, especially when it comes to the promotion of it, so it can cost us in a weird way, and the charts are harder to read. So I'm not going to hold on it just for virtue because Shane likes it. That's what I mean. Like, I even do that, you know? Or there's other ones that I can mention, but that's the same with you. Don't just hold on to because Tom or XRP Future Millionaire likes this asset. Just because I'm not buying DGB doesn't mean you shouldn't buy it if you have access to it on an exchange you trust, believe me. Because that's the one that guts me every single day. But don't buy XDC over XLM because I like it. Or don't put too much weight into something because I don't have something in something else. I've even had to go back and say, I'm sorry, Filecoin and Theta, but even though I want to own you, I personally would rather have 30,000 IOTA and 20,000 ALGO and have my XLM and my HBAR and overweighted in XDC and still be able to have the Fireflyers, like I think do have true potential down the road, and DENT in my band and data, the ones that most people would be surprised, those three in particular that I actually do appreciate. But then I also need my ZIL and my VeChain that I own. So there's certain things that I had to step away and say, oh my God, I was losing the directive of myself. I was losing my own fundamental approach to cryptocurrency. The very tokens I talked about many, many years ago that I was going to feast on when they were at these levels, I was losing the objective of, okay, I can swing in and out of this because maybe I could, no. That is where I led you all wrong the last 5 days. That is why I hate copy trading, because it turned into from easy money and copy trading to trying to fix a formula, trying to figure out it on the fly. It moved into my own personal trading style, and for that, it couldn't happen. So that is why things don't seem like it. Like if you open up a 2x trade in leverage, for example, now all of a sudden you're not building into a spot position. So yeah, you might be paying 50% less and have a 50% window and keep adding to the margin and you'll be fine if it goes down. But you've lost the objective of the I'm going to be an investor now. It's just like you open the casino in your, it's like the gambling just opened up. Okay, well it's 2x and now I can get 50% more, which means I can buy 50% more and I can have this. And well, now you've leveraged your entire portfolio with money you don't even have. It's like taking out a second mortgage on your house to fund your living expenses. Well, that's great, but now you've added an extra additional payment here that you didn't know you had or you didn't have before. It's not that you can't fund yourself on money you don't have. So investing, the number one rule of investing, especially from a rich person, and I'm not rich, but I'm saying from like Warren Buffett and the ones I've watched, like Peter Schiff and all these ones over the past, is that you take out leverage to fund a position. You're not actually in a position. You're playing with fear. And in my personal experience, when you're dealing with a mindset of fear, your decisions are more irrational. The more fear, the more irrational. The more danger, the more bad decisions can be made. So with SPOT, I've afforded myself the opportunity. Isn't it funny? If we have $4,000 in a position, we won't sit through 20% to lose $800, right? But we'll take out a leverage trade at 10x for $2,000 and be happy to get out for only an $800 loss. Let that sink in. I'm just saying, let that sink in for a minute. You have a $2,000 position. You won't ride it for 20% for the formation and willing to give the $400. But with proper understanding, you could get out of the way and then buy yourself in a hell of a lot more if it did break down in that sense. But in a leverage position, you only give yourself 2% room and are very willing to take that same $200 or $400 loss. Just to go back in again, not understanding that if you were in the spot position, you would still have the spot position. You're just down the money. But now even if you try to take that last $1,600, you're not getting the same position because now you've lost it at 10 times the speed. Remember that. It would take a 20% market movement to lose what you just lost in 2%. So that opens up the gambling mindset, and that doesn't help anybody. That's why I won't even 2x trade anymore. I used to, even up until the past rotation, I had some success, and I'll just be honest, with Theta going 10x. But when I looked at the chart, there was a moment when I was sleeping one night that I was within 0.7% of Theta of that entire $1,800 being liquidated. 0.7%. 0.7%. Does it seem like it was worth the money made to know that my $1,700 came within 0.7% of being lost 100%? How stupid was I to not just put $1,700 at 68 cent Theta and just have that many tokens worth? My God, who cares that I didn't have the amount I wanted? Who gives a fuck? I could have built up over time. But if that money would have been lost, it doesn't go to money heaven. It goes into the pockets of the exchange just the way they wanted for that liquidity for the exact move up I was playing. And I've had Bagelgate in many instances where that 0.7% was not there and it actually took my money over the years. So I can only speak to you from experience of why these things can spiral so quickly. Might seem like a great idea at the time. It really might. But I can honestly tell you, it's going to cause you nothing but pain down the road. 95% of leverage traders lose for a reason. 85 to 95, well, actually, it's in spot, 65 to 95%, or it depends what you look at. We'll just say 65 to 90% of swing traders lose over time, even on 1x. The only real winner is the investor because they don't have to worry about the micro movement. Look at XRP. If we worried about every micro movement, would we be sitting here with a 34-cent average? Not all of you have that. I understand that, but I can only speak for myself. If I would have just sold every single up and down, I would have been screwed. I wouldn't have known what the hell was going on. But I had conviction over time, and that's all you can. If you believe in some of this stuff over time, there are bailout plans. Like when I bought it at 34, I said, you know what? If it breaks this area at 28, I'm okay if I have to get rid of it. Or I'm okay if I have to buy more. We hadn't decided at the time. Because we said if it goes sub 20, we're not going to ride it all the way down to 5 or 10 by holding it from 34. Fortunately, it bounced that uptrend and we never had to worry about it, and the rest is history. But there was a lot of, let's go up to 90, back to 38, up to 75, down to 44, up to 99, up to 55, up to 134, back down to 108. You know, there was a lot, up to 250, down to, now, there's just been a whole bunch of it. Up to 345, down to $1.62, back up to 365, back down to $3. It's always going to happen. So that's the message today. Don't be afraid. And don't let some douchebag like me at times rattle you. Because that's exactly what can happen. And I'm not a douchebag all the time, but sometimes, you know, my brain does get fried a little bit. So that's why I appreciate the constructive criticism, because it's led me on the path of revitalization today. I took a moment away yesterday, even though we did some content. I put out a warning video in case we fell below that 2-hour golden cross because I felt like it was within my responsibility to make it urgent enough to where it was understood enough. But at the same time, it didn't do anybody any good. There was too much of, oh, it could do this, it could do that. That doesn't help anybody. Even when I watched back, I said, well, if I didn't know anything, I feel like I just went through a fucking device grip with my nuts just now. So obviously it doesn't do anybody any good. Even me, I was feeling like I went through the fucking ringer. So a lot of inner searching to how I can do this in a much better way. And I thank everybody for the constructive criticism, because I used to not be able to take it as good. Apparently now, when I seen it, I said, oh man, they ain't lying. Oh man, they are not lying here. And let me take this in and absorb it. Nick Morales, good morning, and thank you so much for being a very trusted mod, our tech agent, and please everybody, give him a chance. He's just as good, if not better, at what I do. So, let's see. Frankie Fresh, good morning, and thanks for being Tom's Army for over 3 months with the XRP Meteor. The Cannabis Podcast, thank you so much for being in Tom's Army for over 6 months with the XRP Predictor. Shane, good morning, and thank you for being in Tom's Army for your first month with the emoji badge of me being abducted by aliens. That is my face superimposed on there. Jorge says, consider subscribing to Tom's channel for the best TI on YouTube, or just hit that like button. Just hit the like button. Absolutely. We have 154 people, 88 likes. So over half. I'll take it. Getting closer to that triple digits. Let's see. Binance has DGB. Yes, I know Binance does, but I don't like Binance. I can't trust it, unfortunately. Let's see. I don't hate Binance. It's just I don't love Binance, and just some stuff that happened. Again, it's just some personal things I have to get past. God, I love the love to Nick. That makes me happy. That makes me very happy. Jesse, thanks for being in Tom's Army for your first month with the emoji badge of me being abducted by aliens. Says Nick is so helpful as long as you're trying. Absolutely, as long as you're trying to learn. I agree with that 100%. 100%. And Papa Wheelie says, and thanks for being in Tom's Army for 6+ months with the XP Predictor. Says, thank you to all the mods for keeping this community exactly how we like and want it. Exactly why I put them in, because I also need my checks and balances if I stray. And so it used to take me a couple weeks. I'd be watching, man, what the hell is this trash I'm putting out? You know, now it took 3 days or 4 days to be like, okay, well, hello. You know, you're not just thinking this. They're coming to you saying the same thing. You're obviously not doing this in the right way. With all the right intentions, just not in the right. The delivery was wrong. The narrative was wrong. He back and forth. It just listen to this from the beginning, and I think you can understand without me going over it again. XRP Rippers, thanks for the $10 donation. And yes, some people will say that's not in the U.S. It doesn't matter. It's $10 in his currency, so it's $10. I really appreciate that so very much. And being in Tom's Army for over. Wait a minute. Are you in Tom's Army? I don't think so, but you send donations a lot, so I always feel like you are. But respect to Nick, indeed. Respect to Nick. In a big way. Meatball, good morning. Lonzo, welcome in. Crypto Bob, good morning. And thanks for saying hello to everybody. Roland, welcome in. Mixed Sheep, thanks for being in Tom's Army for over 6 months with the XP Predictor. Raina, thank you so much for being in your first month with the emoji badge of me being abducted by alien. If you would like to experience our humble little community in the Telegram, you can always join Tom's Army. Only for 1 month if you don't want to continue the pay it forward mentality, which is fine because some people aren't in that position. And there are exceptions to the rules. There's always a situation where I will let somebody in if I feel it's warranted, because not everybody has the money. Even for the 1 month, I used to be there, so I'm not judging. But that's where you would go if you join Tom's Army in the member section. I've been in part of my own membership, and YouTube doesn't supply it, so I have to pay every month. But I've been doing it for 50 months. And if you do it, make sure you click on the post of the Telegram, and you will be into the Telegram. And it has a lot of checks and balances. I hold myself very accountable, and I have the utmost respect, not on just a working relationship with my mods, but on a personal relationship to where they're like brothers and sisters. So I respect what they say in a very deep fashion. So there's a lot of stuff. The general chat, Nick is always at work. We've got the content links. So if you want to see all my content, so you don't have to rely on YouTube, group trading. And these are just the setups only. There is no copy trade or group trades at this time. We're doing it as a group and talking about the trade setups. And then if we can do a functional thing, we might go deeper. Yada, yada, yada. We got the help desk. We got the security center. We've got the proclamation, wherever it's at now. It was on here. I don't know if it's still there. Should be. The Declaration of Prosperity, which I encourage everybody to go through and read. Let's put a heart here so it stays towards the top of everybody's portfolios so that they can see this. And I think it's on Sunday, we'll be coming up with our next Reader's Digest, all thanks to Defined Group. And there's so much more. If you want to go deeper and you want to see more of what I do, I put a lot of money, a lot of work into this very avenue in the XRPFutureMillionaire.com. It's a 24/7 dedicated live API, up-to-the-minute update on charts. It starts with the XRP market cap. There's already the volume in there automatically. I put that indicator. It can't be removed. I guess if you go in there by yourself, but it's automatically there. It's got everything you need to know. You can put every single chart. So let's look at IOTA because that's my baby. That's one of my big babies. That in time is going to shock the shit out of everybody. See that rotation where it's down and it hasn't rotated out? In 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 3 years from now, we're all going to punch ourselves in the face and say, well, what the hell were we worried about there? Just like we did with XRP, saying, well, why was we worried at 30, 40, 50, 60, 70? Do we really care? No. It mattered at the time, but does it matter now if you bought at 70 or who cares? Your 7,000 turned into 31,000 or 32,000. Does it really matter? Okay, so it costs you $3,500 more, but big deal. You still made 23,000. That's where we want to be, or 25,000. So that's how we have to look at it for these. So when you come on here, look at the MACD, add it to the volume, moving average convergence divergence, and you're going to see that positive pickup and flow in the monthly, mind you, because that's where I have it set as standard. But the good thing about this, unlike when you're using it on your mobile app, TradingView, I have it set up now to where you can go into all these different ranges. You can go 12 months. You don't just have to do it in the daily. You can do it in a 1 year setting, 6 month setting, 3 month setting, 1 month, 1 week, 1 day, 4 hours, all the way into the micro minutes. You can do it all. It's got all the information here so you can see what's happening. You can see the seasonal crossovers. You can see all this stuff, the technicals, from a statistical standpoint on the indicators, what it's telling you. You can see volume for the day is 14.92 million here. Average volume in the last 30 days is 29 million. Bless you, Julie. And our days range were between 2060 and 2157. And on the day, we're up 3.24%. Right now, the bids are 2135 by 1,397. The sells are 2136 by 6,481. And that's good to know. You know, you want to see what's going on there. And then the last indicator I would say is the RSI, which is the relative strength index. We look at it in this regard. And then we can see where we're crossing over, bouncing off of. And the monthly, I think, is very important. So take advantage of this. And you can go to any chart and any market to take advantage of. But yeah, I think the ones who stick around and try to find all of the information are the ones who are going to get ahead. The ones who leave, you know, they might not be ready for it. It might not be hitting the stride or whatever, but I can't worry about that. So if you are here at the end, it's appreciative. Remember all the levels we talked about. My son's running back and forth like a crazy man because he wants me to stop this live, which I will respect him and do it. But I hope this update live put us more in a singular focus. But before I leave, I want to talk about Alchemy Pay like we talked about at the beginning. So what I would be looking for in Alchemy Pay, and notice, I don't have anything on the chart right now. Because if we're going to look at it together, we have to look at it together in an objective way. So what I would first do, and yeah, you can look at this like a broadening wedge if you want. I don't care. But we have to try to find, you know, the universal, because you can obviously see we have something like this forming. So yeah, rising resistance is something you can take, but you got to go farther than that. So that's an over-the-top resistance. Now, if you remember, that's why we did the wick from back here. I like this chart for a reason, because you only go back so far. So you go from the upper wick, and now you create a boundary that you got to get over. And then you've got the expansion over the top, where every time we seem to go up just a little bit higher, but then come back down for consolidation. So now you try to find an overwhelming uptrend. There's some kind of, and that's where I think it was bouncing around. And now that we've got that out of the way in the weekly, now we can do some micro levels. Because I think in a micro context, and I can show you it in the weekly as well, because I can see how it's set up. It might not be as easy for somebody who doesn't have the technical understanding to do it from a weekly. But you know, we've absolutely, I think, it's fair to do something like that. Overzealous bounce up, which is how we got the higher resistance. But if you look at it from a whole, from the wick to the candle body, back to the top of these wicks and running everything into this, I think this is how you would look at it. And then you can break it down and as you get into the daily and see how nice that looks even in the daily. If you properly identify the candle, you've got back here resistance. It's not pushing it necessarily out there. Because what if you take it from resistance to resistance, overzealous, back to the top, push, broke down, back to the top, push, broke down, back to the top, broke down. And it's just consolidating overzealous push-ups. So now you start looking at it and you ask me, well, if I'm in Alchemy Pay, where do I have to ride it to? Because you're not just buying it for that daily. Hate to break it to you, but this is the reality of buying a position. So if you're buying Alchemy Pay right here, you have the understanding that you're willing to ride at 26.2% down. And as long as it's in that rotation, there's no problem. Keep involving yourself. Keep adding to the position if it comes down. But once it breaks that level, you must understand that that would be your safe plan. You bail out of it. And then if we go to the smaller parts, because we're not going to go the wider part. That never makes sense. You want to go more to where it's constricting at first when it breaks down. For a breakdown, if you're breaking out, you got to look at it from both senses. But see, that's overzealous. It doesn't even have room to break down this far. So, you know, when you start looking at it, now we have to find more of a micro push if it breaks down. And then you're like, well, if it breaks down, technically, wouldn't it be a daily failure? Well, you could look at it from there. You know, you could. But that's why you kind of got to let this play out and see the formation that breaks it down, because we don't have room on the downside to make this play out. It would put it into a negative asset. You know, so that's where it comes tricky. Would the finalization be just coming down 26% and then just keep riding this? Because technically, if you look into the apex of it, from a weekly standpoint, this is telling us fact. You know, this isn't our own. It's telling us this could last until July of 27. So, you know, IQ, your AC crapped out yesterday and got to go change the capacitor part that just arrived. Hope it fixes. We'll pray that it does, because those can get very expensive, as I know, from having to replace my own not too long ago. Well, a couple years now. But, yeah, I hope that works out for you big time. Let us know. But so I hope that makes sense with ACH and what you're really looking for. It's not about, am I going to buy it here and is it going to break down this small micro movement? It's about, do you have the stomach to sit through it until the pattern breaks down? So that's something that I think is something we have to pay attention to. So let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. I don't think there was any more donations I missed. I always want to make sure. I know I didn't get to everybody, but today was more about a direction. Yeah, so here we go. Thank you, everyone. Looking forward to sending our Reader Digest to print this evening. Hope you enjoy it over tomorrow morning's coffee. Yes, Define Group, thank you so much for that. And if there's any more questions to fill in the gaps that for the digest, I know I sent something, but I might not have sent everything now that I think about it. A lot of stuff was going on in the last few days. But our community is growing in a way that it's phenomenal. It's just when you have 400... How many people do we have in here now? 445 people. Notice since I put the checks and balances as I'm having to be in Tom's Army just to get in initially, we've had a big slowdown, which is good. We needed it. We were getting too many people. And yeah, there's still scammers, but that's also gone way down, especially with our checks and balances. So if you're a part of it, you got to be very involved, because we need everybody to be very vigilant. So with ACH, with that being said, a buy-in, it's tough because in the daily right now, that kind of looks a little bearish with the way it's set up, but it will until we get top heavy, because it has to reach so far. This is the other part of this. You can still watch the micro movements to see if this pans out in a death cross scenario, which we very well could be doing this across the market. You know, that's why I keep saying it, just to watch. But from a macro perspective, you've got to have macro setups. You can't just go into a 2-hour time frame to say, this is my make it or break it on this asset. It never works that way. So be blessed, everybody. Make sure you go ask Nick if you have questions as well. He's more than happy. Make sure you be very understanding that he has a 9 to 5. So he'll get to you when he can get to you, but most of the time, he doesn't even need to get to you. He puts the content out there on the Telegram, and all you have to do is look at it. It's not his job to make you read it. It's yours. Just like it's not my job to make you watch my content. It's yours, but it is my job to put out the right content in case you do watch it.